Hi Anna, happy birthday. I hope this has just arrived in the post for you. It's just a little prezi. It's a obviously a pen holder, but it also acts as a bookmark. So I thought you could use it at school. Granny's got one of these. But it's only the first half of the present because somebody told me that you'd like to get into sewing, which I'm very excited by. And I would love to give you a lesson in person, but you live very far away. So I thought I would do this instead. So I've sent you a little kit. So you've got some hand sewing needles, some pins, some thread, a seam ripper so that you can unpick your stitches if you make a mistake, and then a heat erasable pen, which is a pen that irons off. So any marks you make with it when you iron it, they'll disappear. And I've also sent you these. So it's a bit of fold over elastic and another front pocket piece, which is the folded over bit, and I've already done the stitching along the top for you. And then these two pieces with the fusible fleece and without. And I've recorded a video, which you're just about to see, which shows you how you can sew yourself one of these. So if you want to give it a go yourself, you can do. Hopefully that will be in some way useful for you and you'll enjoy it. And I sent you some sewing books at Christmas. Hopefully you've got those and you found those slightly interesting as well. But the next time we see you, we will definitely get together and I'll do a sewing lesson with you and we can use my sewing machines. It's very exciting. But until then, here is the video that shows you how you can make one of these yourself. See you soon. Bye. Okay, so you're going to take a piece of your thread and cut it about 1 metre long. And then you're going to use that to thread the eye of your needle. And then once you've done that, you need to make a knot. So I'm going to show you how to make a dressmaker's knot. So once you've pulled a bit through your needle, you then pull the short end a little bit longer, like that. And then you've still got a longer piece here. So you're going to take that. And then I'm going to zoom in so you can see what's going on. So you take this tail and you turn it around so it's facing this way instead. And then you take your needle, you place the tail on top of your needle and you grab it like that with your right hand. Then you take this piece of thread and you wrap it around the needle 3 times. So you go 1, 2, 3. See, and you've got those loops around the needle, pull them down, and then with your right hand you just kind of grab those and then take the needle with your left hand and you pull those knots. I'm squeezing really tight here, pulling them all the way down the thread to the very end, like that, and then you get a knot right at the very end of your thread. Yeah, so that's how to do a dressmaker's knot. Hi again. So this is the piece that's got the fluffy stuff on the back of it. It's called fusible fleece, and I've already attached it to your fabric for you, and it just gives it a bit more structure basically and helps it stand up a little bit better. So you're going to take that piece and then you're going to take the piece that has the stitching across the top of it and has the crease in the middle of it, and you're going to lay that on top of the bit with the fluffy wadding. Yeah, like that. Now this piece I've just used a friction pen, which is like a heat erasable pen, which you've probably seen at school and stuff, I should have thought, and a ruler, and I've drawn a line a 1/2 inch or about 1 centimetre all the way around from the edge, and that's going to be your stitching line. That's where you're going to be stitching. Yeah, so if you can get your hands on a sewing machine, happy days. But if you haven't, then you can use your hand sewing needles and you can sew down, across and back up again, and I'll show you how to do it. But first of all, once this is in place, you then need to use a couple of pins just to hold it. So I'm going to put one here, one across the bottom and one there. Yeah, so one and one just there, and that's just going to hold those pieces together while you sew them. Then you're going to take your hand sewing needle and thread that we did earlier, and you're going to come up to the top here and you're going to put your needle in from the back like that, come all the way through and then pull until you get to that knot. And then the knot, if you pull really hard, it will still go all the way through, so don't pull really hard, just pull enough that the knot hits the fabric. And then what you want to do is do some stitches. I'm going to zoom in again a little bit. You're going to do some stitches here. So I'm going to go back in again a little bit above. So that's where we've come through from the back, and now my needle's going back in through here. I'm going to pull that all the way through. And when you're pulling with the needle, you need to hold the thread. If you don't, if you just pull with the needle, then the thread just comes out. As you pull the longer tail, the shorter tail pops out again. So I tend to grip it here between my fingers as I pull. Yeah. Then I'm going to come in, I'm going to do another stitch there. I'm going to come back in where we came in the first time. And then I'm going to go back in at the very top, like that. So we've now got a couple of stitches there holding that bit together. Yeah. And then you're just going to sew all the way down that line. So I'm going to come in here, pull my needle through, and you can do something called a back stitch if you want to, or you can just do a running stitch, it doesn't matter. But with a back stitch, you're going to come down a little bit lower than you went in, and you're going to come up a little bit higher than you went in. So that's where the thread is, and you can see I've gone in underneath it and come out on top of it like that. Yeah. And then you can go into the middle between those stitches and come out like that. And then I'm going to go down again in the middle of those stitches, and then I'm going to come down and come out underneath it. Again, I'm going to go up in between those two, and I'm going to grab that. Yeah, or you can just do a running stitch where you go and you take like scoops of the fabric all the way down. It doesn't matter, it just needs to be something to hold it together. Like I say, if you've got a sewing machine, it'll be even quicker, but you absolutely can do it by hand. I'm going to go back to doing a back stitch because I think it's a bit more secure. So I'm going to go in above where the thread came out, and then come out underneath where the thread came out. Yeah, so your needle goes in above where the thread came out, and you come out underneath it like that, and you just do that all the way around. When you come to the bottom corner, you just turn and you go that way, you go back up the other side and all the way up to the top of the pocket again, and then do another few stitches there to secure, and then I'll come back when we're tying a knot at the end. Lovely, so we're all the way back round to the end now. I've done a couple of stitches there just to secure the top of the pocket to the fluffy bit of fabric, and then I'm going to take my needle and I'm going to pop it back down through here and then come out on the back of my work like that. Make sure it's gone through neatly and you haven't left a big loop or anything. And then to finish off, what you do is you take a tiny little stitch like that, pull your thread, and then as you're about to go through the last little loop, you take your needle and you put it through the loop, and then when you pull, it makes a knot. And then you can do the same thing again, so do a little stitch, pull, 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 and then as you're about to go through the last little loop, stick your needle through it and pull, and it tightens down and forms a knot. Yep, and then you can just chop that off with your scissors. Lovely. And take out that final pin, and there we go. Yeah, so you've attached your pocket to the fluffy bit of fabric. Fabulous. So the next step is to take your elastic. So this is fold over elastic. It's designed to be folded like that, but we're going to use it in for this bit instead. So it has a shiny side and it has a matte side. So whichever side you want to have facing out at the end, you then turn down. So this is called the right side, the shiny side, and you face it down towards your piece of fabric, unless you want to have the matte side out at the end. Your choice. Then you're going to take this and stick a pin there, and then go down to the other end, push that up, and again make sure it's in the middle like that, and then pop another pin. Fab. And then you're going to sew the same depth as our previous stitching, our centimetre seam allowance. You're going to sew across here, and you're going to do the same thing at the other end, sew across there. I'm going to cheat and use my sewing machine, but hand sewing is absolutely fine. Just sew across like you did before. There we go, super duper. So then you're going to take your other piece of fabric, the one that didn't have the fluffy stuff on it, and you're going to lay it right sides down on top of this whole piece here. And you're going to pop some pins to keep them together on either end. Make sure the elastic is sticking down out of the way. And then you're going to pop some pins down the other two sides. Again, making sure the elastic doesn't get in the way. So I tend to do like a kind of a fold of the elastic in the middle there. And then if you put a pin right through the middle, it should stop it from getting in the way. Yeah, because it's going to be held from getting in the way there and held from getting in the way there. Yep. And then you can pop another pin on the side here and another pin on the side here. And then what you're going to do in a second is sew all the way around, but you need to leave a gap a couple of inches long, and I would do it on the side that's not got the pocket. So my pocket piece is here, so I'm going to leave my gap over here instead, kind of at the top. And if you make yourself a little mark, you want to leave a gap about that wide. So what's that in centimetres? It's about 5 centimetres. That is bang on 2 inches. Cool, I'm good, aren't I, eh? So what you're going to do is you're going to start sewing here, do a couple of stitches to really lock it in place, and then you're going to go all the way around, turning at each corner and stopping here and do another couple of stitches to lock it in place. Yeah, you can do it by hand, that's absolutely fine. Again, I'm going to use my sewing machine because it's a little bit quicker. I'll see you in a sec. Okay, so I'm at my sewing machine. I'm going to cheat and go a little bit faster. I'm going to bring my foot down. I'm going to do a lock stitch to kind of lock it in place, and then I'm going to sew up to there. I'm going to stop, I'm going to lift my foot but keep the needle down, and then you can pivot around the corner on your needle just like in netball when you have to pivot on one leg. It's just like that, and then you can bring the foot back down again, move the pin out of the way, and then sew along. So there's absolutely nothing wrong with hand sewing, but if you can get your hands on a sewing machine, it's much quicker. You can get them second-hand on Gumtree and Facebook Marketplace and stuff like that, or you can get them new, but I'd go to a sewing machine shop rather than buying it online, because then if anything goes wrong, you've got somewhere to go back to. And then you're just going to sew around. Cool. Make sure you remember to stop at the other mark and don't sew all the way up to there. You need to leave a gap to turn it through. I'll see you in a sec. So I'm back at the end. I'm just going to sew up to that mark. And then you can either do a lock stitch, which does 3 stitches in place, or you can reverse and go backwards, and that will also lock your stitches. And then you can trim off your threads. If you haven't got a thread trimmer on your machine, which is not unusual, then you lift the press foot and you lift the needle, you pull the work out and you trim the threads. There we go. So that is that bit done. Okay, so that's what it looks like when it's been pressed. That's just the pocket sticking out, don't worry about that. But these bits have been pressed back, and then what you get to do is go inside the little hole and turn it all through. So just keep rolling and unfurling until the whole thing has been turned right sides out. See you in a sec. Cool, so it's all turned out through the hole. So then you need something a bit pointy, like I've got the end of this seam ripper lid. You go inside, you could use a pencil. Knitting needle is traditional, but I know you're not really a knitting needle household. And a crochet hook won't help you here. There we go. And then on the other side, so you've just got to kind of poke the holes out or poke the corners out, but don't poke all the way through. So that's why you need something that's kind of pointy, but not too pointy. If you use something too pointy, then you just poke a big hole, which makes a mess. Yeah, so come down, we'll do the other corner as well. And poke that one out, and then come over here and poke him too. There we go. So now what you've got to do is where we did that pressing earlier, they need to get poked in, and then you need to stitch across there to close the hole. Cool, so I've just given a little bit of an iron so it sits a bit nicer, and then you can close the hole. You can either just stitch that section closed if you want to, or you can stitch the whole way around the rectangle, just a little bit in from the edge. So rather than using your full centimetre seam allowance, you'd use maybe 2 or 3 millimetres, something like that, all the way around. So I'll do that quickly and then I'll show you what it looks like when it's nearly done. Okay, so we've sewn all the way around the outside to close the hole and finish it all off. This is your pocket. And now what we need to do is just sew down the middle section of the pocket just to make 2 sections for your pens. You could leave it as 1 if you wanted to. You don't need to do this bit if you don't want to. But I'm going to do it here just to show you how to finish it off properly. Again, take a heat erasable pen and a ruler and just draw a line right down the middle of the pocket piece. Yeah, so you haven't got to go all the way to the top, just from the start of the pocket piece down to the bottom. And then you're going to sew, we'll do a your kind of locking stitch there, go around a few times, then go all the way down to the bottom. All right, and then that's it. So that's it. We've done the final bit of stitching down the middle. I'll give it an iron in a second to get rid of that heat erasable pen. And then that's it. So you can then put it through your notebook like that, and it will hold your page for you. And it will also give you somewhere where you can put your pins, keep them nice and safe when you're at school or doing your hobbies. There we go. See you soon. Bye. So there we go. All done. I hope you like it. And I hope you continue with your sewing. Let me know if you have any questions. I'll obviously answer them. And I'll see you soon.